What if I told you that the simple act of choosing a drink isn't really a choice at all? That it might be part of a huge, hidden system of control, one that quietly shapes your health, your community, and even your government. I know, it sounds a little bit like a conspiracy theory, right? But it's a very real story about how modern power actually works. And today, we are diving deep into the absolutely staggering story of Coca-Cola's conquest of Mexico.
So there's this French philosopher, Michel Foucault, and he had this powerful idea. He said the true, modern power, it isn't about brute force, throwing people in jail. It's something way more subtle. It's the power to get inside our heads and shape our daily habits, our choices, and even what we think makes us happy. And this idea leads to a fascinating and, frankly, kind of chilling concept he came up with.
Foucault called it biopolitics. The basic idea is that instead of just suppressing people, modern power structures work by managing every aspect of our lives, from what we want to buy, to the illnesses we get, and even the treatments we receive for those illnesses. And today, we're going to see this theory play out in one of the most incredible real-world case studies you'll ever hear, the story of Coca-Cola in Mexico.
So, how did this whole thing happen? Well, our story really starts before 1926. Picture Mexico with this incredibly rich and independent culture. It was a country with deep, deep traditions, especially when it came to its local food and drinks. I mean, this stuff was woven into the very fabric of daily life.
On one side, you had these traditional drinks like pozole, which is a corn-based drink that farmers would have, or these amazing fresh fruit juices called aguas frescas. They were local, they were natural, and they were a huge part of the culture. Then, in 1926, Coca-Cola shows up, and it was the total opposite. It's corporate, it's artificial, and it was sold not just as a drink, but as an idea. This was the taste of modernity, of aspiration.
And their strategy was, well, it was brilliant and deeply psychological. The ads weren't really about taste, they were all about emotion. The message was crystal clear. Good brothers buy Coke for their sisters, good parents give Coke to their kids, a good host always serves Coke to their guests. By sponsoring local events and hiring celebrities, Coca-Cola literally wormed its way into the very definition of family, care, and hospitality. And in doing so, it's just systematically replaced the local culture.
But this cultural conquest, as you might imagine, came at a devastating price. It started to build into a massive national crisis, hitting both the environment and public health hard.
Okay, just look at this number. It's staggering. To feed this new national thirst, Coca-Cola built a massive bottling plant in a region called Chiapas. The government gave them a permit to extract 1 million liters of groundwater per day. And pretty soon, the local communities in that same region started to face severe water shortages.
So with clean water becoming more and more scarce, and Coke being marketed absolutely everywhere, consumption just exploded. The result? Today, the average person in Mexico drinks around 800 liters of Coca-Cola products per year. Let that sink in. That's over 2 liters every single day.
And the consequence of all that sugar? A national health emergency. An estimated 16% of Mexico's entire population now suffers from diabetes. The connection between the explosion in sugary drink consumption and this health crisis became completely impossible to ignore.
So, as you can probably guess, public opposition grew fierce. People were protesting the water shortages, the health crisis. The whole issue became so central that it actually dominated a presidential election, with a brand new candidate promising to finally hold Coca-Cola accountable.
But after he won the election, this new president set up some expert committees to investigate. And their findings? Oh, the water crisis was just due to climate change. The diabetes epidemic, well, people just weren't exercising enough. Coca-Cola was given a completely clean slate. So why? Why would a president so publicly protect the very company he promised to regulate?
Well, here's the kicker. The company wasn't just influencing the president. The company was the president. He started out as a delivery worker for Coke, climbed all the way up to become CEO of Coca-Cola Mexico, and then ran for president. And while he was in office, he renewed Coke's water license for another 20 years. And after his term ended, he went right back to being the CEO.
And this is where we come full circle, right back to Foucault's theory of biopolitics. Remember? Managing life, illness, and even the cure. Because the story doesn't end there. In fact, the most mind-blowing connection is still to come.
So with a massive national health crisis on its hands,
The Mexican government stepped in to manage the problem it had helped create. It started subsidizing and providing diabetes medications for free, or at least at a much lower cost to its citizens. The two main suppliers of these life-saving drugs were the pharmaceutical giants Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk.
And this is where the final piece of the puzzle just clicks perfectly into place. Just look at the largest shareholders here. The major investors in Coca-Cola, the company selling the sickness, are the very same investment firms, BlackRock and Vanguard, that are also the primary investors in Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk, the company selling the cure. It is a perfect closed-loop system, a system that profits from creating a massive problem and then profits again from selling the solution. This, right here, is biopolitics in action.
This whole story might be about Mexico, but it really forces us to take a hard look at our own lives, right? From the food we eat, to the habits we form, to the medicines we take. In a world that's shaped by these powerful, often invisible forces, the one question we're all left with is this: how many of our choices are truly our own?